Hi, my name is Kobo and this is my channel where I usually like to talk about paleo media stuff. Today is the second part in a two-part series where we talk about the Jurassic World Evolution franchise. Last time we talked about Jurassic Park Operation Genesis, the precursor to Jurassic World Evolution, and then we talked about Jurassic World Evolution, the 2018 game, and then we talked about Jurassic World Evolution 2, the 2021 game, and then we talked a little bit about Frontier. Today is going to be completely different. We're going to talk about Jurassic World Evolution 3, some of the expectations I have for Jurassic World Evolution 3. What I did in order to do this was make a checklist or a loose list of things that I thought were needed in order to vastly improve the game from what we had, as well as sometimes just little patches here and there. No particular order or importance to any of these things really, other than when I say, I make a comment of this is really important, this is really needed. It's just a very informal, this is what I thought of in whatever the order was that I thought of it, and now I'm trying to communicate that to you many months after making the list in the first place. So yeah, just kick back and let me tell you about some of the things that I thought of, or don't. I'm not in charge of you. So, but if you stick around, I hope you have fun. Anyway, all that said, now I think we need to move on to what I think are some expectations for the third game that are also going to influence when I purchase, because right now I'm thinking if it's really good and it meets a bunch of these things and it goes on sale for 20 to 30% off, maybe I'll buy it within the first year of its development cycle. But if these things aren't met, then I probably won't. I will probably wait until after the first year of, or I should say, not the first year of development cycle, the first year of release. Within the first year of release. Within the second year of release, which would be, we have our first anniversary since we released the game, and any time after that I might buy it. Especially, winter sale or whatever. Then I might consider not buying it until then, is what I'm saying. So, I have a list of a bunch of things I made a while ago, titled Jurassic World Evolution 3 Needed Things, Deeper Mechanics, Missing, and Quality of Life. Missing as in reference, all of this is in reference to the second in the series, Jurassic World Evolution. I guess first though what I should do is explain that we know Jurassic World Evolution 3 is coming. It's been confirmed. When it's gonna get released, I don't know, because they said 2025 or 2026. Supposedly, we're supposed to get Jurassic World Rebirth this year, which time of recording is early 2025. But in fact, I think they have a release date for July 2nd, June 2nd, something like that, for this year. So I don't know. I don't know. BIS and Slot and Evolution Square seem to be convinced that it's going to be this year, even though we haven't gotten a trailer yet or anything. I'm not sure. They know what the disaster was with the first game, so I don't know. But also, like I've said, Frontier, like a lot of other game companies, does certain things, and a lot of other companies in general, does certain things that personally I don't approve of, and I would label as greedy. Welcome to capitalism. So, whatever. It releases when it releases. But until then, I did want to talk about some of the things that I've thought about before of what I would like to see in the new game. I'm going to preface that with saying that this is not stuff that should be added as DLC, paid DLC, unless otherwise noted. this should be stuff that is in the base game, or at the very, very least, by the end of the post-release development cycle, should be in-game. I know that's kind of an oxymoron, post-release development cycle, but let's face it, that's kind of what games do. Even if that official terminology isn't quite right, that's basically what games do these days. So let's start. Let's start with our list here. Deeper mechanics is our first heading, which is an arbitrary place to start, but it's just something I'm going to start with. So, file management. Oh yes, and I wrote it in all caps. And file management for both the first game and the second game. I think they did improve it at some point a little bit, but ultimately, as far as I'm aware, file management for the second game is still just atrocious. It's like, oh, there's a long list of every fucking file you have. But it is separated out, right? It is separated out between Chaos Theory, the different game modes. Chaos Theory, Sandbox, Campaign. What are the other game modes? I haven't played in a while, I don't remember. Yeah, so there was that at least. It didn't have it just one long list and then have, different files next to it. This is for Chaos Theory, this is for blah 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 blah. It is separated into larger folders, but in the game, right? It's still bad. It's still bad because you have to scroll all the way down. You have to scroll all the way down to old files, and if memory serves, you can delete a file all the way down that you've scrolled to a really old file, really old save, and then you delete it, and it will take you all the way to the top. So it advantages having already kept up clearing files out as you go. I'm just saying that it would make life so much easier if what we could do was be able to, just one step there, just being allowed to scroll down and delete something without it taking you all the way back up to the top. That in and of itself would be a ginormous improvement over what we have now. Besides that, it would be nice to be able to mass delete, because you also can't do that. You could mass delete, because there have been times where I kind of just want to start over. I'm the kind of person that it's like, unfortunately, where it's like I have to try and fail a bunch of different fucking times and delete and delete and delete, or try things out and then be like, okay, which is also a very human thing. Like when you're in school and you're learning how to do things, you're like, oh, do this, and then you look back on it after doing that thing for a long time, or a bunch of other things. You look back, if you were to look back at a first grade, picture or math or whatever, you would be like, oh yeah, wow, I really sucked. But then later, you learn how to do things and you're much better. So I guess in a lot of ways it's just being human, but I tend to like go into things, I'm like, wow, this was awful. I have to redo this, I have to restart. And so it would be nice if, you could like go through a ton of different files and delete them, rearrange them. Some kind of better file management than what we have for Evolution 2. So, that's the first thing. Another thing is employees. Employees for deeper mechanics. In some ways, right, it would be nice to have human beings in the parks that behave a little bit more like human beings. Like, we've got some very generalistic, and in a lot of ways it's really good, right? And in a lot of ways it's a little limited, right? Based on how big these parks get, you're getting like thousands of guests or whatever. But it would kind of be nice. I don't know. I did put a question mark next to this, Because on the one hand, I like that, in literally any other zoo management or zoo style, like Planet Zoo, well, we don't have that yet in Prehistoric Kingdom. Oh wait, do we? Yeah, we do. We do now. We have that in Prehistoric Kingdom. We have Parkosaurus. We have what's that little Let's Build a Zoo game? You have employees and they have names and they have backgrounds, which you have a shallow version of that in Jurassic World Evolution 2 with the scientists. But, that's like, generated with stock photos and everything, and the text is generated, or it's stock text. I don't know, what would you call that? Where they've pre-written a bunch of stuff, or it's mixed and matched. It's basically a better version of AI. It would be nice in a lot of ways, but I don't know if you could fully implement that in this kind of game. I think there might be too many limitations, but I'm not going to say no to it. I'm not going to say no to it. But that one. That one in particular is not like if I don't have this, I don't want to buy this game. That's just something that would be nice. Really, in some ways, it fits more into quality of life. I don't know. I guess because it's under deeper mechanics, I was thinking something like you have to keep employees happy in some way. You have to make sure that but again, at that point where you're trying to get into Planet Zoo style stuff, I don't know if you can implement that in this game. But again, if it happens, I'm not going to be mad about it. Another thing, having, and I put this under mechanics, and I think that's true, but having a navigation mesh and accompanying animation and adaptations, which I put climbing or scampering up rocks as an example. Yeah, I think that's really necessary because then we can have our better terrain tools, which I'm pretty sure is on this list somewhere. Yes, it's down a little farther. And we can have, cliffs, and we can have... I mean, even just the way it is, right? On hills, on the steepest hills you can make, but even on some more subtle hills, the animals walking looks funky, which there's always going to be some of that. These games are never going to be that perfect, but it would be nice to have the animals be able to adapt to different terrain and also be able to block them with terrain and being able to have, because sometimes you can make pretty good looking habitats that have elevation differences, and then you can watch the animals walk on the elevation. And again, it doesn't have to be a steep hill or anything, but then it's like, oh my god, that's so funky looking. Or you can have the elevation changes and you really want it to be able to like have them not go into a particular area. I've made some places that look pretty damn good, and the animals will just walk there, and so you either have to block it off with the rocks or some other natural barrier, or which can kind of mess up how it looks, or you have to use fencing or something, or you have to just pretend, which, I like pretending, but sometimes with a simulation game, I do want it to actually function in a particular way. It would just be really nice. It would be a very, I believe it's a needed mechanic, and I've heard, back when I was on Reddit and everything, that was what other people were saying too, so I'm going to go ahead and assume that people never change their mind. Chaos theory was a good concept, especially for this nostalgia-soaked franchise. But it didn't really have chaos to it. Best in Slot has talked about this, I know for sure. I'm sure Evo has a little bit too, where they came up with these scenarios that were basically just, what if a park, but it survives, which is basically the entire game, right? It's in the entire game is, what if Jurassic Park, but it didn't go down in flames, it needed something more interesting. It needed something more to it. It needed, I mean, even if the scenario was build a research facility instead, a thriving research facility, and messing with the requirements for guests or whatever, and the stats, messing with the stats, that would have been something a little bit more. But even then, we just need more than just like build another park that's gonna survive in the same way. Like even if it was something, and I had a lot better to talk about this when I originally wrote this list down, which was a while ago. And you might have, listener might have better ideas about this, but even if it was something along the lines of, we need to build a park that balances all the different types, all the different guest types, or we need to, I don't know, just something else, I'd have to think about it again a little bit, but just there needed to be more to it than that. There needed to be more to it than just what if this scenario, but you could actually build a park. It needed to be, more like, build a nature reserve, build a prehistoric animal nature reserve, build, I don't know, something else. The intelligence trait, etc., needs more fleshing out. I don't know if I can talk about this at length, but I do remember that the intelligence trait, it was a good idea. Again, it was something that was a good idea, but I do think there could have been more to it than an animal tries to break out more often. Um, it needed something else. It needed some depth to it, or at least it could have. I guess this is another one of those points where it's like, this is something we could develop out better. We could develop better, flesh out better. I literally just said that. Fleshing needs more fleshing out. They test each section of the fence methodically. You can watch, the raptor test this fence with the intelligence trait, test this fence, and then this section of fencing, and then it tests the next section, and then tests the next section, and maybe actually have flaws, actually have something, especially if like you've gone so long without repairing stuff, and it finds that it's testing, and if you don't do anything it tests that, and then it starts to break out, something along those lines. I also think that who got the intelligence trait was really weird. It was really just like, I think in some ways it was the legacy animals, Dilophosaurus, Velociraptor, Tyrannosaurus, but also, I don't know, it was also some other animals that could get intelligence trait, and yet other animals could not. And I just remember, like, I think Giganotosaurus can't, or can, or I don't know. It just needed to be balanced, and again, there needed to be something more behind it. Again, not a deal breaker for the next game, but something that would be nice. Could potentially make it a new kind of game, depending on how you do it. Swimming, I put with 3 question marks. It would be nice, and it could possibly make things much deeper, as far as what you have to guard against, especially considering my next one, which was what I already talked about, improved terrain tools. Having improved terrain tools and being able to put deep water in and stuff and all of that, and having swimming would make management a little bit more. There'd be another thing. There'd at the very least be another thing to do, to consider. It may not necessarily make it deeper, but it could. It could. And with the improved terrain tools, I wanted to say including running water in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's the Prehistoric Kingdom Planet Zoo style, where it's like a special effect, and then you put the special effect over the water or something. It would be nice. It would be nice to be able to, you could make just tiny little waterfalls, with the current, terrain tools, you can make like this stilted river, but then you can't make little waterfalls to connect them. And I think we should be able to have something like that. Guest interaction besides killing with some of the animals. This goes back to the first game, and somebody suggested that there would be not only petting zoos. That's been a prevalent thing that's been discussed in the community, at least on Reddit. But also like having, like just some other kind of guest interaction module. So like an attraction. Somebody posted this. I don't know who it is. Shout out to whoever the fuck you are. But somebody posted this idea where you had an attraction that, like any other attraction, like the viewing gallery, it hooked up to the, snapped to the fencing, and you could place it on the fencing, and it was this heavily guarded, almost like a viewing gallery, or something that maybe had more of a way to get, a corridor into the, more into the paddock, and, or something along those lines, and the animals would snap into an animation where they interacted with the people, and the idea being that the people could, like, like at the zoo where you go and you feed, certain animals. Sometimes you can feed a giraffe, sometimes you can feed something that's a little bit more of a tolerant animal who's not going to freak out and start fucking, killing you. Or maybe an elephant. You can hand an apple to an elephant, or whatever the hell, right? Whatever it is. Toss some food to the ducks. Something along those lines, where you would have guests interacting with animals much more directly. And because some of the animals you might be able to. You might be able to. And I think that was a really good idea. Again, shout out to whoever you are who came up with that. Something along those lines, right? And again, petting zoos, which do not necessarily have to have juvenile animals. They could have adults of the smaller animals that we have, especially now. Pterosaurs need to be able to walk, because they look really weird flying all the time when not all of them fly, especially with our bigger ones like Asdarchids, like Quetzalcoatlus, and who was our other Asdarchid? Something Draco. Something Attis Draco. I don't remember. Whoever that is. Fighting sauropods. Again, this is something that people have wanted from the first game, because contrary to what I said in my other section, not all of the animals could fight. Some of that was updated. The Pachycephalosaurs eventually were able to fight smaller carnivores like the raptors, dromaeosaurs. But the sauropods still cannot fight, even though we've had in both games the Ankylodocus or Ankylodocus, however you want to say the hybrid animal, which is a hybrid between Ankylosaurus, the club-tailed spiky friend, and Diplodocus, the long-tailed kind of spiky friend, but not in the same way. Because it's got the little frilly spine things on the spine of its back, on its back. I don't know what to call that structure, but the scale structure, anyway. But the sauropod in the Ankylosaur. And it's got the club at the end of its tail in both iterations. It's got 2 different iterations. And it could never fight back. They never coded that in. And nobody expected in the first game for that to be coded into all sauropods necessarily, because we knew about the development cycle and how fucked everything was. But on the second, it was kind of getting like, okay, why? Why can't the sauropods fight back? What is this? Is this a weird demand from Universal? Which is possible, because everyone wants to be like, sauropods are just gentle giants, and like, I'm sure in a lot of ways that may have been true, but also they had spikes on their feet. Not all of them, but enough of them had spikes on their feet, and those spikes were there for good reason, and it was not just traction. Probably. So, yeah, pterosaurs need to walk, and sauropods need to fight. I wrote ultimate tanks, only the Indominus Rex and animals like Giganotosaurus can take them down, and even then it's hard. I really do wish we had a more realistic view of herbivores in this franchise, because herbivores can fuck shit up. And yes, they can be nice and gentle and sweet, especially to their young, especially with when we're talking about mammals, but they can also fuck shit up. And, carnivores have sharp teeth so that they can kill, sharp teeth and claws so that they can bring down an animal and make sure that it's dead, or they can hold it down until it's dead so that they can then eat the dead carcass. Because if they don't do that, herbivores who only need blunt instruments, hooves, horns, which may not even be sharp, um, they can mess you up. A good swift kick from literally any ungulate, horses to moose to whoever, can mess you up. And that's not just because we're humans and we're human sized. That's predators too, who are also in and around our size in a lot of ways. Wolves are, I guess, I don't know, I guess they're a little bit smaller than us, but they're also really big and they run in packs. And if wolves get kicked, that can be the end. That can be the end for a wolf, which is another reason to hunt in packs. But even for like a mountain lion, mountain lions kicked by a good swift kick from a deer, that can be the end. That can be the end of the mountain lion. So herbivores can be nasty too. And I think we should be able to see both sides of that. And carnivores should also be able to be sweet, which is why some of the social animations so far, with the second game, were great, because some of the carnivores were real sweet to each other. The playfulness of the Tyrannosaurus Rex animation is just absolutely adorable. That's A+ shit right there. Amazing. Fighting everyone, at least for similarly sized animals, with some caveats. So I think this kind of goes hand in hand with what I was talking about. Everybody should be able to fight. Everybody fight. At some point, everybody fights. I can't tell you. You can watch rodents stand up to cats. The things, that evolved specifically to go after small rodents, there are rodents that will, give the mouse equivalent of a roar against a cat. And the cat will be like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't fuck with you. So, everybody should be able to fight back against someone. A Struthiomimus in these games could for sure kick a Coelophysis in the skull and send it flying, and send it reeling at the very least, just make it go, oh god, I don't want to mess with that. Or mess it up, because those are some sharp claws on their, on their feet too. So, again, with some caveats to be made for, like, canon or whatever, because, weird associations people make with, but the raptors are so strong, blah, blah, blah. But it's a T-Rex, and it's like, they're still animals. They're still animals. We're almost done with this section here. Next would be viewing gallery, dome, breakouts, and break-ins. Contrary to the first one, because I was having such a hard time with challenge 1 in the first one, now I'm at the point where I do want the animals to be able to break in and out of more places. And I think that it would be at the very least, it would be a good mechanic to, again, have deeper management, more problems at the very least. To be able to have a viewing gallery or a viewing dome get broken into, especially because the viewing dome in this game is not like the viewing dome in JPOG, even though I'm sure that's thick like bulletproof glass. Some of the larger animals, especially with the silly cannon strength, silliness, and size, would be able to get into some of those things. So I think that would make for an interesting breakout mechanic, addition to a breakout mechanic. Technically a break-in. Oh, and well, I did with the breakout, I did mean, maybe a raptor could break into a viewing gallery instead of going through the fence, and then go out the front doors. Amenities coverage variation. I already have falafel wrap in park. Need waffles or whatever. So that was another thing that, they made that really easy. I think there were certain people who just, they didn't know. I don't know. But some people seem to really have a problem with this. And watching a quick video, especially in the beginning of the release of Jurassic World Evolution 2, if you watched, like, Best in Slot or whoever, they went through real quick. You go through your amenities and you're like, let's see what makes the most money. And you just kept doing that. You just kept doing that, which is the main thing, which are the little modules inside that make the most money. You just kept doing that, and whatever made the most money, that generally got you, to get your ratings up and everything. It was fairly easy. Sorry if you've had a hard time with that, but it was fairly easy. At the same time, what you end up doing is based on your people, your guest types, you can end up having like I said, a falafel wrap. I end up having like a gajillion falafel wraps in the park, and so it would be nice to have a little bit more depth there. That would make, like, okay, you've already had, like, you have 2 of these in the park, similar to the attraction buildings, where you can't have 2 bowling alleys, otherwise you'll get a deficit in rating. Having that be at the very least something you can turn off and on and off, where you have falafel and yeah, that rating is good, but somehow you need a little bit more there to require you to build like a waffle restaurant or whatever. So that's the end of what I had under deeper mechanics. What I'm going to go over, and this is a much smaller list, is stuff that I found that was missing from Jurassic World Evolution 2. And some of this makes sense because it would mean a lot more work for the devs that I don't think they were ever going to be allowed to do. But some of this stuff is just, it's weird that it was left out. So my first thing is Triceratops 93. So the 93 skin, the skin that's based on the Triceratops model from the very first Jurassic Park film, is missing the 76 skin combos. You can only have the one Triceratops 93. And that was different in the first game because you had variations with Return to Jurassic Park. It's different from the other 93 animals because, with the exception of, like, a couple of them, like Tyrannosaurus Rex and Velociraptor, have, like, skins specific to that era. But then you also have the Stegosaurus, which has its own variant for 93. And it has, towards the end there somewhere, they ended up adding, the 6 pattern colors and the whatever that number is for the base game. So it's a weird thing to not have. I don't understand why they never did that, because the Triceratops model for 93 I think is significantly different from the one in the 2015 model from Jurassic World, and a lot of people did prefer that one over the other. So it was a weird thing not to have. Maybe they ran out of time. I don't know. Return to Jurassic Park film accurate fences. So in Return to Jurassic Park, from the first game, the DLC, they had some really good, very film accurate fences that we did not get in this go around, and they were amazing. What that would require, though, is that you reanimate a bunch of the animals, especially the smaller animals, or you make it a little funky by saying, or switch some of the breakout animations too, because they had, like, they were leaning or whatever. Some of them were leaning, like, inward, and so in order for, like, some of the animals have climbing animations for their breakout, and so you would need to change that in some way, shape, or form. You would need to have them climb differently, or switch it so that they do the charge and attack the fence animation instead, or you would have to reanimate it in some way, and that would be a lot of work. So I could understand that, but it would be nice if we had those other fences back. They gave us one. They gave us one that was a little bit more like the old ones, but it was missing the. It has two prongs, not prongs, but like plates or whatever that stick out at the top, where you're supposed to be able to string more fencing through there, so that it's like, it's like some of the in Planet Zoo or whatever, you can have you can have the fencing, you can toggle something on the fencing that allows you to have an anti-climbing thing at the top, and it can face the inside of the fencing, it can face the outside of the fencing, so basically keeping animals out, keeping guests out, or both. And that's basically what this fencing is. And we have the plates where you should be able to string the fencing through, the wire through, but you don't have the wire. And that's because, the animations and everything. So, I understand that, but that would be nice to have. Vegetation from Jurassic Park shelter, not deco. So I noticed this, that oftentimes when I place a Jurassic Park shelter, that's not the decoration, that's the literal one that's supposed to function as a shelter, that the vegetation is missing on that planter part that is on either side of the door. They never did anything with that, and that would also be nice. This is a minimal thing, but it's something I would expect to be fixed in a new game. More Jurassic Park signs. There's a bunch from Return to Jurassic Park, as this has been repeated ad nauseum on Reddit and whatever. But also some more that are like the lagoon aviary, for the lagoon and the aviary and aquatic reptiles and stuff. It would be nice to have some more variation, because not all those animals look the same, especially now. We've got a turtle, we've got a Nothosaurus is a... I don't remember who our Nothosaurus is. I don't know if they're a parareptile or if they're somebody, but they're not like anything else in the game, in more ways than one. And more decoration options for buildings, having upgrades or optional toggles. So like, we have that for the amenities, attraction buildings. So the bowling alleys, genetics tour, those buildings have, different paneling, different shapes, different they're different shapes, different walls, different colors and stuff. You can all do all that stuff. You can have different decorations out front with the lamps and everything, and the seating on the top, or whatever it is. It would be nice to have that. It would be nice to have that for more buildings. So, also, have some of those options for like the viewing gallery and the viewing dome, or at least the viewing dome end. And they did try to do that for the guest entrance for the viewing domes, and have it be specific to the era. But it would also be nice to be able to recolor it a little bit and, add some different decorations or whatever. Even though it looks amazing the way it is, it would still be nice to have options. It's always nice to have options, right? It would be nice to have that with, I want to say, some of the other buildings too, like even some of the ops buildings, the operations buildings, like Ranger Station and whoever. I'm not saying that it really needs to have that. I'm just saying it would be nice. It would be nice. At the very least, the other attraction buildings, the viewing platforms and all of that, they should have a little bit more options to them. So that ends the missing stuff. In addition to that, I've got a bunch of stuff that's quality of life, but it's not quite as long as the deeper, well, it's about as long as the deeper mechanics. I think this should be pretty quick, though. So let's see. More visitor types. Visitors plus more. Oh, yes. This was a big one for me. So, when you make a new sandbox or whatever, you have to choose what types of guests there are. And you can choose visitors only, visitors from the Jurassic Park era, visitors from the Jurassic World era, staff only, and that can be staff Jurassic Park or Jurassic World. And it would be nice if you also had visitors plus Malta staff, a special Malta staff reskin of the visitors. Maybe a VIP visitors for if you've got a more, a more expensive park. I would open up for some commentary there. That's what I meant. So like VIP visitors for like if you have a DFW or a Dinosaur Protection Group DPG park where you've got those people, those workers. Also have some VIP visitors who are like, you can imagine they're like, people who are potential investors, people or not investors, but donators. What do you call that? Charity people, basically some rich fuckers who have some money to burn, and you're trying to kiss their ass and convince them to give some money to your group so that you can fund your more naturalistic park. And that was also something that I didn't talk about, that in the past I've really really considered something that would be having some new mechanics around having a more naturalistic reserve style park or whatever, some more Type B style, which in some ways this has allowed, especially with the advent of automatic release, but it still could do some more to that effect. And so this is a small fraction of something that would allow us to do that, and possibly more with whatever the fuck is happening with Rebirth and whatever the fuck. Facility paths that will not allow visitor guests no matter what, because the way it is now, you have the facility paths, but guests will still go on them if you have different areas of different parks that are not connected by regular paths. And that is frustrating because there were certain parks that I've made where that just is going to tank your scores. Now, it was on a sandbox, so that doesn't necessarily make any difference, but also I didn't want those visitors going there anyway, for if I wanted to do a little breakout or whatever and see what happens. So that would be really nice. Is something that I think you should have the facility paths the way they are now, because it allows you to have a little bit more variation considering the limited number of paths that we have, the limited skins that we have for paths. But which did grow quite a bit, but still grow a bit and necessary. But interspecies interactions, again, that would be very nice to see. Packies with your Struthies being like, oh, let's interact or whatever. Like, that would be nice. That isn't fighting, right? It's also just some other kind of thing. And we had some of that with the hybrids being able to interact with either hybrid parent or parent species. More customization, including footprints for buildings that match different path types. The basic footprint for the buildings is like that deeper asphalt, and it would be nice sometimes to be able to match that to your other paths. That's basically all I'm saying. But, well, I said more customization, and again, that's one of those things, and I meant for that to... Oh, what did I mean before then? Oh, so there are decorations that I don't think were ever added into the options for the buildings that have those options to switch out decorations, so like the amenities and stuff. So there were certain decorations that I think they were adding more and more, but there were still some that you never could put there. We eventually got the benches and stuff, and those were not included ever in the options, and as well as some other fountains and stuff. And it would just be nice to have more options in that. That was what the other bullet point was really what I had talked about. Was what I meant here was to say that it would be nice to have more options as far as a lot of that stuff goes, more colors and more buildings having those options, as well as what I said about the footprints. So, and it would also be nice to be able to toggle, like they had a sand effect for the Malta buildings as opposed to like an actual footprint, and it would be nice to be able to, sometimes it would be nice to be able to have the footprint for the Malta buildings like we normally do, And it would also be nice to have the sand or a dirt footprint for the other buildings, especially if you want to build like a broken down area of a park or whatever. Ability to turn off fire decorations. So when you have decorations in the park, decoration buildings that are, damaged or whatever, it would be nice to have the fire to be gone. Because if you want something that's supposed to look like a park that's been run down for a long time, that's been abandoned, long abandoned, having fire actively going without it actually being burnt up, it doesn't make sense, and it would be nice to be able to turn that off. Same with, like, there's a sparking effect for damaged buildings. It would be nice to have that turned off. And that leads into my next one, which is basically what I just said. Damaged cosmetic that doesn't have sparks or fire. Smoke too. Damaged cosmetic that makes things look long abandoned. There's no activity going on. There's no, in some of them, there's like, the fans are still going, and it's causing some debris, like some papers, to fly up in the air every once in a while. Great attention to detail. If I want to make it a long abandoned park or section or whatever, I don't want that to happen. Barriers for lagoons. What the fuck did I mean by that? I think I meant something along the lines of being able to have a huge lagoon and being able to partition parts of it that will ensure that the smaller marine reptiles will not panic constantly around the larger marine reptiles, because that's something that always bothers me with these games, is the panic, having smaller animals constantly panicking, in part because that was one of the loops that the JPOG animals could get caught on. I can't tell you how many Dryosaurus I had to deal with who were constantly panicking around the other animals, and they were getting dehydrated, they were starving, and so some of that is that, but also sometimes it's like I just want to be able to not have that happen. Fences, barriers that can sag over water but can be toggled to keep their height and let water through a grate underneath as they go over the water. So what I'm talking about is a completely different style of fencing, or something that you can toggle where the fences don't sag in the water. They keep their height, or if you want to, they can sag. Again, either a different style of fence or something. Because sometimes you want that effect, especially if you're building an abandoned park. But other times you want the fencing to stay at a consistent level, and then have the option of having some kind of grate or something that allows free flow of water between the two sides of the fencing. Or not. Or you want one that doesn't have that at all, but still keeps a height so it's not sagging into the water. Again, having options, not just having it be one or the other, is important. Track switching for monorail and other rides, with 3 question marks. So yeah, it would be really nice if monorails could switch tracks, you could have special tracks that merge or diverge from each other, and hopefully if you could do that with the monorails, you could also implement that with the other rides, because sometimes, while it is simple in a lot of ways to do loops and have separate loops in your park, sometimes it would be nice to be able to just have the same fucking thing and have some kind of track that, again, comes in or diverges from the other tracks that you've got. It would just be nice. And considering we have Planet Coaster, and that is a part of the Frontiers games, it would be nice if they somehow were able to bring that to this franchise. Better skin quality, especially on Pteranodon 2015. I don't know what the fuck I meant by that. I don't know. I don't remember there being a problem with that, but apparently there was. So I'm gonna say okay. Shuttle Transport. What did I mean by that? Oh, maybe something that doesn't have a track? Or... Oh, you know what? I probably meant, I get annoyed by the tracks that have the lights on them. And I wish that there were different, again, this is just about options. I wish that there was a different kind of thing where, or alternatively, well, let me finish my thought. Where there weren't a bunch of lights, like the gyrosphere has a bunch of lights on the ground, and the truck, I think the truck for the Jurassic Tour attraction has lights on the ground that line the tour path. It would be nice to have a shuttle or something else, or maybe just an option for those rides to turn that off or turn it on. I think I also meant by having a totally different kind of transport that was not as big and bulky as the monorail, because the monorail is huge and everything, and this was also part of a solution that would eventually been implemented with having the tour vehicles give you some transportation. It helps you out on your transportation mechanic or score. But yeah, it was just a suggestion for having some other kind of transport that was more like a shuttle. And I think that I meant something on a track and not just a freewheeling thing, but I don't know. I wrote this a while ago. Bridges, that's pretty self-explanatory. Bridges for, tour vehicles especially. But just bridges in general over water would be nice. Would be a nice addition. We're almost to the end. Different social animations based on social antisocial gene. If I remember right, some of the in-game explanation for social and antisocial is like, or maybe was in the first game, was like, I don't know, I don't remember, but if you got an especially social animal, it would be kind of cool if it's the social animation that it had with other members of the species was more of the nuzzling kind, or the, groom, like come along to groom them, lick them, whatever, peck at them, as if they're pecking at, some kind of bugs that are on their flies that are on their skin or whatever. As opposed to like something with an antisocial gene, they probably have more of like an aggressive social interaction. I think that would add some depth to the game as well, to the animals. Better borders for building on not square maps. I kind of remember what I meant by this. So this has to be in reference to the hitboxes as well as the border and how they interact with the borders of the maps. I don't remember exactly what this was in reference to. I do remember having problems with this, but I don't think I can really talk about it. So if you've been playing the game recently, you may know what I'm talking about better than I do. But that ends our list. That ends our list of quality of life updates. And the rest of our thing here, I may split this up into like 3. That's it. That's all I wanted to talk about with this stuff. If you want to talk about what some of the things you want, I didn't talk about the whole asking for babies thing because that's been talked to death. My own 2 cents on it is going to be pretty bog standard. It's going to be, I don't think they can implement it well, and I would much rather have them flesh out other bits of mechanics with gameplay and stuff, attractions, rides, all of that stuff, than giving us juvenile animals for every single species in game, which is quite a few now. And that's all there is to it. I don't think it's worth saying more than that. And it needs to be a significantly better game. Like I said before, in order for me to want to buy this game, it needs to be significantly different. They've said there are a couple of new things that they want to bring to it. I have no idea what that could be. I'm not in the headspace to be able to conjecture. But there needs to be more depth with lagoons and aviaries and some of the things that have happened in mods. I will say are great, like having invisible aviaries. So having something like that for this game would be great. Having it be like a high electricity requirement for aerial defense mechanism that they had in Jurassic World Dominion, and have that be able to have contain your pterosaurs would be nice. And like I said, being able to partition lagoons and general things as far as the animal behavior and stuff would be nice too, that I didn't say here. But other than that, yeah, I think those are my thoughts about Jurassic World Evolution 3 and the improvements that would need to be made over Jurassic World Evolution 2 for me to want to buy the game, or at least buy the game when it's not on sale. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm sorry I got a little worn out at the end. Like I said in the first episode, I did this a couple times and I was talking for a very long time and I got very tired at the end. So sorry about the dip in enthusiasm, or the up and down in the enthusiasm. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any thoughts about what you want for Jurassic World Evolution 3, go ahead and put those down in the comments, and we'll talk about it. Alright, thanks for listening, and see you again next time.